transition. This is something what we need to do in order to become as a society more sustainable, as one of the important transformation processes that's currently going on. And of course, we as scientists, as researchers, drive these changes by developing new solutions for an energy system. But the actual change may not happen there, but may happen in the room of our children, as is shown on the left side. So it's really about people and involving people in these changes. And I think this is particularly important for AI. I mean, we all use AI now. It's on our smartphone. But of course, younger generation do this in a different manner than older ones maybe. And this is really about the society and having an exchange with society in all these areas. And this is at our heart. That's one of our key missions, to be not only drivers of technological development, but also communicators with the society and understand what our needs and adapt to that itself. And that's something how I'd like to start that presentation on KIT. So in that sense, we develop solutions for hopefully safe, sustainable, and future-oriented world, in the sense that we are serving society as the overall mission of KIT. A few figures for those of you haven't seen them. We are both a university as well as a national lab. As a university, we are for German standards mid-sized, I'd say, with about 23,000 bachelor and master students and 3,600 doctoral researchers at KIT. The budget for that with 1.2 billion euro is quite large, and that of course relates to the fact that we are also a national lab and running large-scale research infrastructures. For instance, a supercomputer at our scientific computing center. And here a few other key figures given, which I'm not explaining in more detail here. Well, as I said, we are both university as well as national lab, and that of course gives the opportunity really closely connect and integrate research and education. And Benjamin Schäfer just mentioned that. For me it's still a bit unusual, because I'm just as of 3 days now a vice president for academic affairs. Before I was vice president for just research, but this is now a major step in the development. This is now is closer together, and well, we will work on that and bringing really at KIT research and education also with respect to large-scale infrastructures and so on closer together. Well, the scientific profile is given here in overview. I don't have the time to go into details. What's shown here are our 9 KIT centers, sort of representing our interdisciplinary research profile, and then you can read through that. I just like to highlight a few of them. With respect to energy, I think we are one of the 3 largest energy research centers in Europe, having a leading role for that, and also in Germany. What you see on the top here is a picture of our energy lab, which is really a large-scale infrastructure at Campus North, where we test on fairly high technology readiness level already technologies that in the next step hopefully get into use. But of course there are many other aspects, and I will touch briefly on them. You already see robotics in a picture. You see climate and environment, materials, mobility, all areas where AI is playing a very important role, and you will hear about that throughout the session. And so I'd just highlight a few aspects here. One is, as I already mentioned, humanoid robotics, which I think maybe serves 2 ways in a sense of what's the role of AI in here. Of course, the one is that AI is used to basically run these machines, and that maybe, and you know this better than me, but I think for AI is, well, having sort of, for instance, the language models is now, it's sort of common now to interact with a chatbot on something. But if I would have that device in my hand and give it to a robot and saying, just hold this, and then the robot has to, of course, identify what is this, what do I mean, is it my hand, is it this device here, or whatever, what should it hold? In a certain way, he has to identify that, he has to see it, he has to understand what that is, he has to develop sort of a strategy how to pick it, because that could be vulnerable. For us, we all know what that is. I mean, of course, the child wouldn't, And if you have children, then you can tell. I mean, for them, it takes a couple of years until they would react to that and would have an adequate action to that. And I think that's all part of that, how these humanoids are developed. But of course, the other thing is, if you then want to use them as humanoids, for instance, in an environment where they take care of older people who can't, for instance, feed them and so on, then of course there's also an interaction that this becomes sort of acceptable for the human being, that he or she is fed by a robot. And all these aspects need to be taken into account, and how that can be developed. And I think that's where sort of my initial motivation really comes into play. We need to talk to the society about that, and that's why we have a real-world lab on robotics, where we take robots into situations like a care situation, but also into preschools where they interact with children, not only once. And Barbara Bruno is sitting here in the front row, and I think you will talk about that. And so this is really important to us. Well, I already mentioned that, so I skipped the slide and touch on a second aspect, which is also very important for us. So I mentioned material science already. It's also one of the areas where we're very active. We have 2 clusters of excellence that are related to material science and chemistry. And of course, AI is also playing here an important role. Materials development take quite some time and can be crucial for certain developments. Sort of my favorite example for that is, many of you wouldn't know that example. It's on titanium aluminides. It's a class of materials that the first paper was written about in the 1970s, and then took until 2010, 12 or so, until the first time this material was on a commercial airplane used in a turbine. That shows how long these development times could be. I think for turbines on aircrafts, it's probably a good idea to be really sure that it's safe to use it. But of course, it shows how long these development cycles could be, and here AI can play a very important role to become much faster. So I'm not going to detail and explaining these transparencies. There are others in the room who will do that or have done it already at the conference. But just to illustrate, materials development is also one area. And there are many others, and that is what this session is about. And in that sense, I stop here by showing one more slide, and this is sort of an outline what's happening now in Baden-Württemberg. We will be, as KIT, the leader in establishing a graduate center for applied artificial intelligence in Heilbronn, where we get additional funding from the state government, establishing 10 new professorships in that area, particularly also to strengthen the area of chip design, so hardware for AI and using AI for hardware. These are important areas that will be covered there. I stop here, give you time for science. That's more important than me, obviously. I hope I have shown you that our aim is really to do science for impact. Thank you very much for being here and for your attention.
Thank you very much. We won't take any questions right now, but he promised he will be around for some questions if you have any, maybe after the talks as well. Also, please already queue up during the talk, as we are already welcoming our next speaker, Professor Martin Frank from the Scientific Computing Center, SCC. We already met Achim Streit during the prologue day. He's another one of the directors of the same institute, and he will present us the HPC system at KIT and also how it becomes so green. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks a lot. So it's still not science, just a little bit. I'll tell you a little bit about the HPC infrastructure or AI infrastructures